The following program contains scenes and language of a frank and explicit nature. Viewer discretion is advised.
This is The Loud List, where our random, rowdy, and raunchy band of misfits create top 10 lists of life's most insane shit. Be scared. Nothing is off limits. So congratulations.
You just made the list!
I'm the music god CJ Plain, and this is episode 2 of The Loud List. You know what we do here? We bring you lists that rock. Top 10 greatest of all time, top 10 favorite. This week we have, depending on where they're at on your screen, orientated, follow the finger. This is Phil and Lisa. They're friends that I met from their show, and we are going to let them introduce themselves, and then we're going to come back, and I will tell you what will we be doing a list for today.
All right.
How are you guys?
Good. How are you?
I am alive. So
There's a lot to be said for that, but
Yeah.
we really
Yeah.
appreciate you having us back on your show, CJ. It's been a while.
absolutely.
Yeah.
So tell everyone who you are. Tell everyone who you are, what you
We
do.
are Lisa and Phil. We will leave it up to the audience to guess which one of us is which. We are from Cincinnati and, well, the Cincinnati area. And we do a podcast called Yeah Uh-huh. You can find it at Yeah Uh-huh Pod. It's available on pretty much every media available for podcasts, including YouTube. So it's, it can be found. It's YEAHUHHUH. Yeah, uh-huh.
That's right. At Yahoo Pod.
Yep.
Instagram, YouTube, Spotify, or not Spotify, but I had TikTok. There's a TikTok out there, but it's kind of dead. Haven't done that for a while, but anyway.
And if you're listening to this, the audience can see, but if you're the audio side of this, there is a mutual love of guitars, Funko Pops, and wall posters. So
I can see that. Yeah.
we have
Judas Priest art there. Is that a shirt or is that a banner or what?
no, that is full-size posters. I have Prince, Metallica, Pink Floyd, Judas Priest, and then Iron Maiden, Bob Marley, AC/DC, Deadpool. I have the Goonies one over here. Then I have posters from two friends bands, the Reticent out of North Carolina and the Midnight Devils. And I got to give props to the Reticent. Really great. My friend Chris's band, and they were actually quoted in a medical journal recently. They did a record called The Weebilette that's about Alzheimer's, and an expert on Alzheimer's actually referred to their record for an Alzheimer's article, which is got to be really cool to be a death metal band and write this record about Alzheimer's and just have this random expert.
Right. It's like death metal's the day job, and then he dabbles a little bit in medicine as well. So
he's actually a school teacher. He's a music teacher. A brilliant musician. If you ever get a chance to check out the Reticent, very much in the vein of like Opeth. So if you dig like Opeth or Devin Townsend, he's very much in that vein. But today we're going to do the top 10 TV themes that we loved. So we each got an individual top 10 list, and we will start with Lisa, go to Phil, and then I will give mine, and we will do our list. There's no particular order to these. We're not really ranking them 10 to 1 this time. We're just doing 10 that we loved, and I got a feeling there's going to be a good fair bit of nostalgia
Yeah, yeah,
Oh yeah.
yeah.
In these ones. So, Lisa,
I'm
mm,
gonna say that if I were ranking, this would probably be my favorite, simply because it's something that I shared with my dad, and it's a really kind of a sad song, but my dad and I would sing at least part of it, and it is. Let me try to give me a second here. Suicide is painless. It brings on many changes, and I can take or leave it if I like. Now, on the show MASH, it was the instrumental. And of
right.
course, my singing, while I enjoy karaoke, nobody really enjoys watching me do karaoke.
Oh, I do. It's priceless. I love it.
Yeah, priceless because, yeah. And he's got a decent singing voice.
Not well.
He sounds good and he won't do karaoke. So just saying. I know I sound awful. I'm tone deaf. I can't keep a note, and I go off. I don't even know where I'm going sometimes. But I don't care. I enjoy it.
That's all that
So,
matters.
yeah, my next
So that was
is
Suicide is Painless.
yes, that
Okay.
is Suicide is Painless by Johnny Mandel. It was
Okay.
written for the MASH movie, and they did continue by using it in the series.
Yes.
Now, I did not love the movie, but I watched. I'm almost a MASH expert. I can answer questions.
Right.
And I once stumped a radio MASH expert with a
Nice.
question. And he hadn't been stumped in 5 years.
Nice.
And my question was, who bought the garbage and what did they do with it?
There you go, CJ.
Because that's one of my favorite episodes.
I'm going to be honest. MASH is a TV show. I really enjoyed it, but it wasn't one I got to watch a lot of. So what I've seen of MASH has been like random episodes throughout the series. I've never actually seen like every episode. But I do really enjoy MASH. It is a hilarious show with a
Yeah.
great cast that there's very poignant moments. I did see the episode of Henry Blake, the
Oh, yeah.
helicopter crash, and that's
Yeah.
one of the great season-ending cliffhangers. So I will give that. And
Yeah.
I'm with you. I've been known to butcher a Air Supply song or two for karaoke. So making love out of nothing at all is normally the victim of choice. But doesn't stop me.
Yeah.
So Phil,
no.
what's the first one you had on your list?
First one on my list. Oh, I didn't. Okay, I thought we were going to go. But that's okay. This is cool. All right, so
We're gonna go like first. We're just gonna do like one at a time for each of us.
that's
Okay.
great. Yeah. Okay. So when I was a kid, there were like a triumvirate of shows that I just lived for. One of them was Starsky and Hutch. The other one was the Rockford Files because I'd sit there and watch it with my dad. My dad looked just like Jim Rockford, so he'd eat that up, you know. And what are you looking at me for? Well, he had the same hair,
Uh-huh.
He fancied himself that way, right?
Okay.
And I'll remind you that Rockford was also Maverick, so he grew up with
Yes.
Right.
But then the other one was Beretta. Now, I just love that whole vibe, like the whole the street life, the cops and robbers, the inner city, the idea that you had a pimp that you would go to and maybe try to get some information off of him and stuff like that, and then the chases through the streets, like kind of like that, preceded by some of the movies of Steve McQueen, So Beretta, don't go to or keep your eye on the Sparrow was one, if not my favorite, it's right up there as one of my favorites. And I didn't know till the other day when I started researching this that Sammy Davis did a recording of that And for a minute I thought, well, that don't sound like Sammy Davis. So I don't think he sang the theme song that ended up on the show. But he did record uh Keep Driving Sparrow. Yeah.
And it's interesting that they used a bird song because, you know, he had a bird.
Right. Right. That fits
Mhm.
it. So
You know,
I wonder what happened to
it's
the bird.
it's possible it was, because I have one on my list that I did not know who the singer was. I've heard it a billion times and had no idea that it was an extremely famous singer. I just I would have never listened to this song all of these years. I
yeah.
never
Yeah.
pictured this guy
You
singing
never
the
knew
song.
that was it. Yeah.
So it doesn't sound like anything he's sang previously.
Right.
So,
I mean, I was
um,
quite surprised because I thought it was like Isaac. If anybody, it was like Isaac Hayes or somebody like that. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, they were diverse back then. You know, they had the ability to do a lot of styles, a lot of voices, a lot of different things. So,
Well, you think
um,
about today with Bruno Mars and Ariana Grande um, and some of those other younger singers who can actually do each other very well. I
yeah.
mean, if you look on YouTube for Ariana Grande mimicking other singers, it's like, whoa.
Oh yeah, she does.
I mean, her
Yeah.
Britney Spears. I know she does Celine, and people talk about how she does Celine, but her Britney Spears is like, if you close your eyes, it's her.
Didn't she do like Iggy Azalea and stuff too?
Probably. Apparently, she's a bit of a voice chameleon.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So when I made this list, for my first choice, one one of them just immediately jumped out. A show I watched religiously, a show that I practically lived.
Mm-hmm.
As the son of a trucker, growing up in the front seat of
Mm-hmm.
a truck that looked exactly like the one on the show for the first couple years. The very first one that jumped out at me was BJ and the Bear.
Yeah.
My dad is in his 54th year of driving this year.
Wow.
Says he's going to retire, but as I
Wow.
told everyone else, I will believe that when I see it.
Too many,
He'll
too
stop.
many people retire and die 2 weeks later.
He's my grandpa retired in 79, took up farming and is
Uh-huh.
98 years old and still running his farm every day. My
Wow.
dad my dad will die without driving that truck. He doesn't know what else to do.
Right.
So my first one was BJ and the Bear, self-titled song. It was sang by Greg Evigan, who played BJ.
Yeah.
Still one of them
Pretty
songs
famous.
that, you know, it would just the lyrics and everything. For the first 5 years of my life, we didn't own a house. We lived in that truck. First, it was the Flat Nose International, and then Dad got rid of that and he got a Peterbilt. And the Peterbilt was nicer because they had the bigger bed area, the bigger cab, the bigger everything. So,
Yeah.
it was sort of a
So it
palace
was
on
just you
wheels,
and your dad?
Do what?
It was just you and your dad then?
Yeah, my mom and dad got divorced when I was 2. Dad got sole custody. My grandfather has a lot of money and hired an attorney, $500 an hour in 1971. He was an attorney from Washington, D.C. that mostly did criminal cases, but you know, when you have money, money talks. And
Yeah.
there were other circumstances that I didn't know at the time that contributed to my dad getting custody. We won't go into that because that's another whole political arena. But so yeah, that was one of the 3 shows that I watched religiously.
Mm-hmm.
That
I
one
can
by
see that.
choice. The other
I
2 I kind of watched because I didn't have a choice. But
Mm.
so the second one for you, Lisa.
The second one for me is The Big Bang Theory, the history of
Yes.
everything. by Bare Naked Ladies, written during a
So the story was that this
Mm.
the lead singer of Bare Naked Ladies wrote it during the shower.
oh, while he was showering.
Yeah.
Okay.
It wouldn't be shocking to me because they strike me as that type of, you know,
Kind of
um,
wacky. Yeah.
Kind
Yeah,
of
like-
fast.
Bare Naked Ladies and They Might Be Giants are both groups that did very sort of wacky, tongue-in-cheek songs.
Yeah. Well, yeah,
so,
and the like based on the research that Philip did, by the way. Thank you, honey.
You picked the
Um,
songs, but
I
find
picked
some
the
facts
songs
for you.
and he just kind of gave the information. Chuck Lorre commissioned the song. So I'm guessing he gave them talking points and
Yeah.
they put it together as a song. But
I would
the thing
imagine
is,
they
one thing
probably
I
had.
like
I'll go ahead. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to
Oh.
interrupt.
one thing I like about it is even though it's I believe it might be like a list of things that Chuck Lorre wanted them to highlight, I don't believe it sounds like a list song. You know, oftentimes you'll listen to a song and it just kind of sounds like the lyrics or somebody's grocery list.
Yeah. Isn't that funny how it accelerates as they go through? It starts out,
Yeah.
it's fast all through it,
Uh-huh.
but it like it's a like time warp type speed
Yeah, yeah.
towards the middle of it, and then
And I assume that was intentional.
yeah,
But I've seen, I believe I've seen every episode of The Big Bang Theory, just like MASH.
Yeah.
And I really, really enjoyed I really enjoyed both those series
yeah.
very much. And that's one of those things where I would actually listen to their theme songs. MASH because I couldn't fast forward through the intro. And Big Bang Theory because I couldn't at first, and then I liked the song. And it didn't take very long. So, yeah.
I would imagine they probably give them maybe like an episode or two to see, to help write. Probably tons of NDAs involved of, hey, we're gonna let you watch a couple episodes, yada yada yada, but
Right.
can't do this, can't do this, can't do this.
And
this difference.
I really feel that the theme song really fits that show.
Yeah, it does. I've noticed that's a recurring theme with Chuck shows is he has a really good approach to whether it's Two and a Half Men, whether it's Big Bang Theory, whether it's the Sheldon one, even the George and Mandy one. The theme songs really are sort of tailored to fit, what is going on in the show. So
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's a new vehicle coming out starring Stewart,
yeah.
and I
It fails
I
to
look
save
forward
the
to that.
universe.
I look forward to that.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I think it's a good premise, depending on how they go about it.
Yeah.
It's Chuck Lorre. Chuck is very, very good at what he does for the most part.
Yeah.
Did
What
not-
happens is when he moves on to a new show, that's when the show's kind of
Yeah, I'd say did not enjoy the new one. Wasn't the show itself. I am just not a fan of Sebastian Maniscalco.
now which one are we
He's-
talking about? I don't
the one about
Italian
the bookie. I think it's
Comedian.
called
the
Bookie.
bookie. Okay.
Yeah, I mean Charlie's
Yeah.
scenes in it were
Philip's
funny.
been watching that, but I'm not. I'll
Yeah.
if it's on, I'll sit there, but I'm not going to leave the room just because it's on. But I'm not invested.
Yeah, Sebastian Maniscalco to me is about as funny as paint drying. He tries so hard to be Andrew Dice Clay, and he's just not
No.
like,
I liked him
he-
when I first heard him, but then it's like it becomes kind of a one trick pony,
yeah, like he's trying so hard to be the PC version of Andrew, and it's just like you realize that's pointless, right? Because the whole point of Andrew Dice Clay is the
not
fact that he's not PC, right?
PC.
So you're trying to be
correct.
the unfunny version of him. Like,
Yeah.
like
And then
It's,
even Andrew Dice Clay, when he tried to be PC, while his
oh yeah,
career did not inflate, it didn't. I think that some, a lot of his fans were like, he's still kind of funny. It's just not as
yeah.
funny.
Well, he has natural timing.
Right.
Sebastian just is kind of like, I
If
don't know.
you
He
don't,
ranks up there with Dane Cook for me as guys that
yeah,
just,
you
you
have to
know,
be born with timing. You can't fake it.
yeah, Dane Cook is another
It's
one
a,
that people hype up, and I've watched Dane Cook, and I'll just sit there like,
well,
okay, when's the joke? You like, when are you gonna start being funny? Like,
well,
um,
and a lot of his material is borrowed.
that's
That's been proven.
yeah,
So
but that's common among comedians. They try to make it out like it doesn't happen, but I
Yeah.
can point out at least a dozen current comedians who have used shit from other comedians. So,
Has
um,
anybody flamed out as badly as Dane Cook? I mean, he was like instantly famous, and then he went out like a match.
Carlos Mencia.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, Carlos. Mine.
Carlos did because he got into that big thing with Rogan, but the whole thing with Rogan was, you know, fucking fucking Rogan made this big ass thing about, oh, Carlos stole a joke from Ari Gold, who's another one who's just not funny in the least. And then turned around 4 months later when he did his comedy special, when he did the whole thing about Noah's Ark, right? And he's like, anyone that believes in Noah's Ark would literally have to be to and I was like, seriously, like you got on Carlos for stealing a joke, and then you literally fucking stole Carlos's thing. Like,
Yeah.
what the fuck, bro? Like that
In
just
his mind, he's probably thinking, I turned it on. I turned it against him. I turned
I
it
mean,
on
I
him.
don't know if that's what it was, but Rogan's another one. Like, I have a lot of respect for Rogan for what he's done with the podcast,
Yeah.
but he's another one I have to take in really small doses because he's just
Oh,
really
I
fucking
hated the
him.
whole spirit of that. What was the show he did where people were eating
Fear
mice? And all
factor.
Fear Factor.
oh,
Yeah.
Fear Factor.
He was such a jerk on that.
And he is in real life. He's got to be. He's constantly talking about, I'm training this, I'm training. Yeah, we get it. You're a fucking MMA fighter. But until you actually get in the fucking ring and fight somebody, I don't give a shit.
Yeah.
You got 13 black belts, and none of them are fucking worth a shit if you don't actually use them to fight somebody.
Right.
Like,
And maybe he just doesn't publicize his fights.
I can't stand the
But
ones where he's got all his
you
gym
know,
rat buddies in there.
see him in the
yeah.
MMA ring. I want to see celebrity MMA.
I
I
mean,
would watch that.
I would. Hey, I'm all for celebrity deathmatch in real life.
Oh yeah.
People eat
Yeah.
that up. So
You know what I'm
that actually
saying?
sell pay-per-views.
Like, hey, I say let them get in the ring and beat the shit out of each other and
Yeah.
then just be done with it. If they
No,
walk
I
away
mean,
friends, if they don't, I don't care. But you settle it one way or another.
do celebrity MMA. And then if someone dies, well, that's sad.
Yeah, like I said. Second one for you, Phil.
All right. Welcome back, Cotter. So the formula that I used, it had to be a show that I liked, and I didn't start researching shit until I exhausted in any attempt to remember the lyrics. Like I think a good one has to be one that sticks. And this one is, this was a great song by John Sebastian, who's the lead singer of the Loving Spoonful. I don't know if he was at the time that he wrote this. I think he was a solo artist or
I think it
whatever.
was a little after.
Yeah. But it's just a great song. I remember when it came out, it preceded, it eclipsed the popularity of the show initially as a song, it seemed like. It got a lot of radio play, and it's just got a really good laid back vibe.
Yeah.
So when I was looking into it, apparently the show was banned in areas of Boston because because of a busing crisis that was going on at the
Right.
time. So it had some political overtones to it. But I loved the show. You know,
Yeah.
I loved Epstein's mother. He come to class with a note from Epstein's mother, and then
I actually did that with
yeah.
one teacher. I would write notes to him and signed it Lisa's dad.
And so this, yeah, it was just a great song, and set the tone for the character of Gabe Cotter. He was a teacher, but he was also a mentor,
Yeah.
and a friend to these guys, and had come from the same high school, and knew that Mr. Woodman was a prick, so he mediated between the kids and the the
And the and the vice
administrators.
principal. At the time, he was the vice principal
Yeah,
at
Yeah.
the
And
beginning. And
and
eventually he became the principal, I believe.
yeah,
so
and influenced at least four other very famous comedies that came after it. So,
Yeah.
you had uh, the Bayside Gang. What I don't even remember the name of that damn thing with Zach and Lisa and all of them.
Yeah, I know what you're talking
Saved by the
about.
Bell
Yeah,
was
Saved by the
one,
Bell.
and then Boy Meets World was
Yeah.
definitely one, and then
That was good.
there was another one that had like Dan Snyder, head of the class, I think it was. John Leese and whatnot. But John Leesman. There's that one, and there's I think another one too. Henry Danger had a lot of the same type of thing. So
yeah,
you
kind of
know,
predecessor to those shows.
yeah, definitely that formula of classroom hallway vice
Right.
principal
These
type
kids were a
of
little rough around the
formula.
edges.
Steve Harvey.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do what?
Steve Harvey.
Yeah. Um,
He did they kind of phased out the kids after a while, but initially it was basically the same formula.
okay. I didn't see that one.
Yeah.
I know Michael Blackson has a new one
So
that's
Steve
sort of
Harvey
related.
and that guy that he's on The Neighborhood now. But he's on The Neighborhood where he lives next door to the White family and they become really
Oh,
close
you're talking about the
friends.
one with Cedric the Entertainer.
Yeah, Cedric the Entertainer was on the
Okay.
Steve Harvey show when he was
Okay.
when he was a
Oh,
high
yeah.
school teacher.
Okay. I remember that.
Okay.
Was that the Steve Harvey show? I thought I remember the show. I
I
didn't
can't
realize it was
remember
called the
what
Steve
it was
Harvey show.
actually called, but I thought it was called the Steve
It might
Harvey
have
show.
been.
But there
It
have
might have
been a
been.
few iterations of that. There was no, that wasn't Steve Harvey where the guy was raising his nieces and nephews.
Oh.
No, that wasn't Steve Harvey.
Yeah.
But
Oh.
yeah.
So my second one is another classic one. I think it's probably ranks among the greatest of all time. Is I won't try to sing it because it's
I know.
those were the days. All in the
Oh yeah.
Family, but Archie and Edith.
Mhm.
You know, a show that just really defied everything. Carol O'Connor was really in a class of his own when it come to
Yeah.
the character he played and the person he was.
Mhm.
He was very adamant in certain points being hit. And
Yeah.
I love that he did things like demanding that when they introduced the Jeffersons, that they had to have their own show, that Sammy Davis Jr. had to be a part of it, that, even though he played this character who, quote unquote, didn't like black people and didn't like whatever, he was the complete opposite in real life and,
Yeah.
you know, was using it as a vehicle to sort of poke fun at the
Right.
people
Mhm.
he played.
Right.
So
That show was groundbreaking. Yeah, it's like, and that song really wrapped up, really personified Edith and Archie. I mean, it's just like
yeah.
here the old, these people were going back to the
Mhm.
depression almost. It's like,
Yeah.
the the
And the
American
way she
story
sang it,
telling.
it was so endearing,
Yeah.
it was like our case, the consummate those were the days. It was
Yeah,
like
right.
it was a consummate. Like couldn't
Buffalo
sing,
Bill and
but
stuff.
didn't care.
Yeah.
Um, so beautiful. Number 3, Lisa, for you.
Here we come, walking down the street. The Monkees. I
Yes.
was 10 when I discovered the Monkees. They were on Saturday morning TV. This was 1976. I was, of course, madly in love with Davy. I would literally kiss the TV. It really annoyed my dad. Um, but yeah, I mean, I loved that show. I had no idea that he was in his 20s when I was born. Um, so, I didn't care. I was going to marry Davy Jones.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that spawned a
It
lot
was
of well,
a lot like a lot of their songs, they did not actually write that song, I don't
Right.
believe.
No, I think it was written by
Let's
Dave Clark.
see. It was based loosely on a Dave Clark 5 song called Catch Me If You Can. It was written by Tommy Boyce and Bobby Hart.
yeah.
And we actually saw Mickey Dolenz in kind of it was kind of a retrospective. It was songs and stories. We saw him last year at a local venue. It was really nice. It's like it only seats about, I don't know, what would you say, like three to
I think
five
it's like
hundred?
a little bit smaller than that, but yeah,
Yeah.
that's gives you a
It's
good
it's
idea.
a very it's a fairly intimate venue. And then, you go down to the venue and you see the show and, there's no snacks. You can get drinks, but no snacks. And then you go upstairs and there's a restaurant.
It's the
So,
Ludlow
yeah, it's
Garage.
called the Ludlow
It's
Garage. It's really good.
it's actually the
really
same
good.
location where the Allman Brothers recorded their live album, although
Okay.
it was a little bit different building at the time. But
Yeah. Yeah, it's
Nice.
been remodeled. But it originally was a garage, and they converted it into a venue
isn't that the
with a
thing about the
restaurant.
Monkees though, that they kind of created a monster? It's like we're going to write the songs for you, we're going to create your personalities for you, we're going to do all this publicity for you, and then it was like they got to a point like we're musicians, so we're going to do our own music and stuff. And
Mm-hmm.
it's like after, I think it kind of bled over after the show was over, that they
Mm-hmm.
did an album or two, I think, after that was really their original music, and of course it went nowhere.
Yeah. Well, no, actually, they did decent.
No,
They,
I'm sure it was
I mean, Mickey's still making money.
right.
Oh, his sister was on the tour too. She has a beautiful voice.
It was fun.
Mm.
Talk about nostalgia. Yeah, that's
Yeah, it was very. It was great.
he had all these stories about spending time with Jimi Hendrix and John
Mhm.
Lennon and the Beatles,
Elton
and stuff.
John.
Elton John, yeah.
Yeah, when he went to London and actually he met the Beatles when they were recording something, but I can't remember what it was.
I think it was Sergeant Pepper's. 'Cause
Yeah.
then he played
Okay.
Sergeant Pepper.
Right.
Yeah,
Sergeant Pepper's.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he was there and
Sergeant Pepper.
yeah. They were like, "Hey, Mickey, big fan," kind of a deal. And he was like, one of those things where it's like, my name.
You know what? I saw something on Facebook, or not
Uh,
Facebook, but a reel where it was
Yeah.
Paul McCartney getting ready to go out, going through the corridor up to the stage,
Mhm.
and him and his band are walking along. Guess what they're singing?
What?
The Monkees.
The Monkees?
Hey, hey, we're
Hey,
the
hey,
Monkees.
we're the Monkees.
Yeah,
Oh, that's cool.
yeah, it was cool.
Nice.
That was cool.
So number 3 for you, Phil.
Well, so I think the very first show that kind of spawned all this streaming craze and limited series and episodic television or whatever was The Sopranos, and woke up this morning by a band called Alabama 3. Apparently, it was a song off of their album. It's not like they wrote the song for the show, but they did condense the song down for the show. And it's just just a killer song. It's like it kind of
Yeah.
captures the whole New Jersey feel, I think. But apparently, what I read about was that the spirit of the song is the song really is kind of dedicated to the women of the show. And when you think about
Yeah.
the show, you think about all these pivotal, like
Mhm.
we know the show pretty well, like the psychiatrist, and Tony's
Mousy.
wife, Dr. Malfi, right?
Mhm.
And his daughter, was it Willow? No, it was
No, it was a flower though.
yeah. And of course his wife. Women
Yeah.
play a huge role in it. Also, um, his cousin's wife, who eventually gets
Yeah, was that his cousin or his nephew?
his nephew. Yeah.
Yeah, his nephew's wife who gets whacked.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I thought that was interesting because you think of it as kind of a masculine show. You got the gangsters
Yeah.
and everything, but even Tony shows like this not a feminine side, but a softer side, admitting he has reason to see a therapist and stuff.
Right.
Makes him vulnerable.
Mhm.
HBO is infamous for really strong theme songs for
Yeah.
their series. Whether it was Oz, The Wire was particularly interesting because they used the same song for all 5 seasons, but each season the song was sung by a different artist. Um,
Okay.
and it was a song "Down in the Hole," which is originally a Tom Waits song, and Tom did season 2, I think, but then during the other 4 seasons they had other people interpret the song in different ways. So there were
Now, which
5
series
different
was
versions.
this again?
The Wire.
This
Oh, The
The
Wire.
Wire,
I didn't know
yeah,
that.
and then
The Wire should, if they're gonna reboot a series, it would be The Wire.
oh no,
No?
it was way too strong of a series to
Yeah.
try to mess with. There's certain series that were so
Iconic.
they were timepieces, you
Mhm.
know. And this was set during the drug epidemic that Baltimore had, the crime epidemic.
Mhm.
And it would lose its meaning unless you interpret it in a new way of like the
Right,
LA
right.
gangs or something like that. But you couldn't do it like just sort of
Kind
a
of like the way Law and Order has different versions.
yeah.
Okay.
You know, without getting into it, the new Little House on the Prairie reboot
Oh,
it's just a terrible idea.
yeah.
It's just I can't see a feasible way for them to do that series and do it correctly. One, it's a period piece, which is very hard to replicate. Two, it's one of the most beloved series of all time.
So people are gonna really pick at
Three,
it.
it was done in a way that you can't just throw any person into these roles. You
Right.
know, um, for example, I have said on multiple podcasts, um, you know, just being particular, if they're going to do Charles Ingalls, there is only one man in Hollywood today that could do that role in the way that's required. You got to have somebody who can be soft and poignant towards his children. He's a loving family man, but at the same time, if you mess with his family, if you mess with him, he'll pick an axe handle up and whip your ass with it. So you got to have that ability to play both the loving father and the badass. Um, the only man in Hollywood that I could see doing that role correctly is Walton Goggins.
Mm.
Well, he's a busy
that's-
man. We see
Yeah.
him on everything.
but he's the only one who has that persona,
I can see
you
him.
know.
I can see him in that role.
Um,
yeah.
No,
And
I
then-
mean my brain went to Tom Hanks.
Tom's too
But-
old.
Yeah.
Tom's way too old.
Oh,
Because
okay.
in during the time frame of the thing,
Well, I didn't know
Charles.
where in his life they were,
So, but that's the thing. The series itself, he's between the ages of 32 and 51,
Right.
or 32 and 50. So you got to have someone that is younger-ish.
Oh, it's a reboot.
Yeah, it's a total
Okay.
reboot.
Oh, I thought you meant they were doing like a continuation type thing, the way they did
No,
on
it's
Willow.
a total reboot.
Oh,
And
ew.
then to add to that,
Why?
since like I said, to add
They
to that,
can't-
if you
they
bring in
can't
Walton
find
in,
new. That's it.
Yeah.
They can't find anything
Um,
new.
if you're bringing Walton in to do
Yeah.
Charles Ingalls, the logical choice is you have to have Mr. Edwards. And immediately my brain went to, that's a role that was just built and designed for John Goodman. You know,
John
the
Goodman.
big, bulky, sort of lumbering guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, but John Goodman, he's too old.
Well, have you seen the
He's
right?
over 70.
Have you seen the Righteous
That
Gemstones?
guy was only
Yeah,
like
I
10
love that
years
show.
older than Charles.
Yeah.
I know, but Mr. Edwards sort of had that sort of older, gruff,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
appearance with the white beard and whatnot. And I think John would make it believable.
No.
You know, and it's just the two roles, and that gives you. I've said this. It gives you the ability to, since you have two well-established actors in those main roles,
Uh-huh.
it gives you the ability to take new actors and, like the children, bring in just new faces, give them their start in Hollywood without having them have to carry the weight of the show. And, you know, the experience of Walt and the experience of John could really teach them the proper way to do it. And then you could throw in guest star wise, you know, you could throw in the surviving cast members in roles. You could throw in,
Danny
people
McBride.
like Timothy Oliphant or Benedict Cumberbatch. You could throw them into whatever roles, just one-offs, to make it interesting for people to watch. But I don't know, it's such a monumental task to do that show. Like I said, it's a period piece. So you got to redesign the sets, you got to redesign the town. There's so many.
You were a fan of the old show then?
And you've got to wonder.
You know what? It's not that I'm a fan of the old show. My grandfather growing up, we're getting way off topic here, but growing up, there were two rules in my grandfather's house. Number one, dinner was at 4:00. You had to be in your chair at the table at 4:00. Not 3:59, not 4:01. Dinner was 4:00. Now, it just so happened that at 4:00 every single day during the week was when Little House on the Prairie was on. So while we sat and ate dinner, it played into the second rule. When it came to the TV, since Grandpa paid all the bills, Grandpa had first choice of the TV. His rule was, if it had Andy Griffith or Michael Landon in it, that's what you were watching. So whether it was Little House on the Prairie, the Andy Griffith Show, Mayberry, whether it was Matlock, Highway to Heaven, if those shows were on, you were watching that. There was no questions asked. So we watched Little House on the Prairie every single day during dinner time. So it wasn't that I wanted to see it. I didn't have a choice. Now I respect the show a lot, and I love the show, and I am a big fan of the show because of it.
Very well done.
I've heard the argument they're going to make it PC and woke, and I'm like,
that's not going
you obviously haven't seen the show because they handled a lot of shit on Little House on the Prairie that was very woke
in a very kind way.
Yeah, they handled
compared to what
child abuse, alcoholism, rape.
Right.
They handled some really dark shit.
Yeah.
In a way during that time period that would never have been touched by any other show.
Right.
So while you may not consider it woke, it was pretty damn woke for what it was up against at the time.
Right.
And what the heck do they mean by woke for a period piece? Are they going to have pronouns?
No, they're worried that they're going to recast the characters as other than what they are. Like, they're going to recast a character as black. They're going to recast a character as this, that, or the other thing. And it's kind of like, it's Hollywood. It's going to be.
It's not unreasonable. Okay, well, let's make Mr. Edwards black.
Well, and that's the thing. Like, that's why I say it's really a series that there are so many series that could be rebooted
Mm-hmm.
This is one that really is, it's a
Very.
monumental task. And the person they put in charge of doing it was the woman who did the Vampire Diaries.
Mm.
So right out of the gate, I'm kind of like,
Huh.
I'm not sure if that's who I would have chose for
Right.
that
Right, right.
series. You know, it's just
Well,
not.
I mean, we'll see.
Well, I mean, I was a
Again, we'll
casual
wait and
watcher.
see. You know, we'll
Right.
wait and see. My third one is going to be one of this gentleman's. I'll get his take on it when his list comes up. But my third one was the other show that I was forced to watch. Luckily, I did want to see this one. It was on every Friday night. I never left the house on Friday night until I saw it. And that was Dukes of Hazzard.
Oh yeah.
Waylon Jennings, good old boy. I won't go into it. I'll let Phil talk about it more when it comes his turn to talk about it. But
ahead.
for the sake of time, Lisa, number 4 for you.
Number 4 is WKRP in Cincinnati. I think it's kind of obvious reasons we are in
Right.
Cincinnati, as we speak, at least a suburb of it. And I mean, I just love that show. It was so funny. I mean, the all the characters were so good, and they worked together so well, and they seemed to really care about each other.
Yeah.
And I just found it kind of hilarious. I mean, you've got like NESTLES, chocolate makes the very best chocolate. And you've got the phone police, and you've got, that Mrs. Carlson, and just Andy and Jennifer and Johnny, and just Al and Venus. It's just all just works
Yeah.
as a show, and it's set in my hometown, so can't beat
And
it.
as someone who has worked in a radio station, I can say it is fairly accurate to the antics that happen at a radio station. Even to this day, you have the sort of infighting, the prank, the fucking with each other in whatever way without destroying the integrity of a show. But
Right.
pushing it right to the borderline of what you could do to
Yeah.
test the metal, so to speak, of the new guys, and find out did they have what it takes to really do radio. So
And
um,
they also tackled a lot of like serious stuff.
yeah.
The biggest thing, of course, was the Who concert.
Yeah.
His sister was actually there.
Yeah.
Wow.
She didn't get trampled, thankfully, but she was at the Who concert when that happened.
Yeah. She didn't know anything about it until she left the show.
Yeah, neither did the band. They didn't tell them until after the show.
Yeah. It was tragic.
Yeah, it was.
Changed the festival seating
Right.
for all eternity.
In fact, I think it's just recently that they have made festival seating legal again, but I'm not 100. They've done something.
I think you're right. I think so.
Yeah,
I think
just recently. Yeah.
it is introduced some places, but I'm sure it's got more crowd control than it did.
Yeah, and it's only I think it limits the size of the venue.
Yeah.
Because that venue was really big. I think it's got to be like 500 or less, or 1,000 or less, or something to that effect. Mm-hmm.
So Phil, number 4 for you.
Peaky Blinders. I had resisted that show for a long time. I looked at it and I was like, I don't know about it. I started it, didn't, and then I just sat down one day and committed to 2 or 3 episodes, and then I got hooked. And that's
and we scarfed it.
That's a freaking amazing show.
We literally inhaled that show.
It's about Birmingham, England, and a family of gangsters.
Mm-hmm.
And I just love the atmosphere of it. I love it. Like it's never sunny. It's always like just really kind of sepia looking. It really looks. It looks really cool.
The way they light it and film it highlights that, like it makes it feel older.
Yeah. But and then the rock and roll element of it. Of course, this is where Black Sabbath comes from and Led Zeppelin to at least half of the band, But the music is usually spot on. But the theme song is Red Right Hand by Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds, which
Mhm.
gets used in a lot of media
Mhm.
for obvious reasons. It's just a kick-ass song, But
Right.
people that know that song know what I'm talking about. But it's got
Yeah, Nick
like
Cave
a
was a
synth.
great choice for
Mhm.
that because he does have that darker element, that darker vibe.
Right.
Yeah, yeah.
That was a good choice.
That song, the Red Right Hand, is just, it's so good.
I think there's gonna be a reboot of it. I think they're gonna
Of
bring it
Peaky
back.
Blinders. Yeah, they're doing a continuation, not a
Continue.
reboot.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, a reboot is like completely redoing the show. This is an extension.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
Maybe I'll jump. Maybe I'll jump to Dukes of Hazard on my next turn because you've already brought it up, and I'm eager to talk about that one. But
Mhm.
what you got?
Okay. Um, so you did WKRP. I lost my place here. You just did
Mhm.
Peaky Blinders. Okay. My next one is the one I was talking about earlier. I did not realize who was singing the theme song for this, but it's Come and Knock on Our Door for Three's Company.
Uh-huh.
And I did not realize that it was Ray Charles
Oh,
was
really?
singer of that. Yes.
Huh.
Um, and when you listen to that, Come and Knock on Our Door,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ray Charles, it does not sound that soulful thing
Ray
that
Charles
Ray
is a
does.
chameleon.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it blew my mind. I was like, wait, that's Ray. And I went back and listened to it, and I'm just like, I'm not hearing Ray Charles at all, but it's Ray Charles and Julia Rinker were the ones who did that song. So again,
Yeah,
proof
I'm with
that
you. I would have never guessed that.
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
But I mean,
I
he did. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
no, I was like you know, I I've heard that song a billion times and just
Mhm.
never. I thought it was just some unknown studio singer that they
I thought
hired.
the female may have been Suzanne Summers. It seemed like her voice. I've heard her sing before, and I thought, well, that
Yeah,
could be
no,
Suzanne Summers.
it's Ray Charles and Julia Rinker were the ones who sang that. So, um,
Yeah.
yeah.
Because really, Suzanne Summers didn't start like the singing career type thing until after Three's Company.
Yeah.
So, or at least it didn't get any. She didn't have a singing career before Three's Company.
And then it was the QVC career,
Uh-huh.
selling health
Yeah.
supplements and stuff.
All right.
I know that Ray Charles did an entire album, I just want to say, where he did all of the voices, including the backup singers. So, yeah, he did all the instruments and all the backup singers because he wanted it to sound a certain way.
Like I said, I'm not really shocked because, like I said, Sammy Davis, Ray, a lot of them did so many styles. It just
Right.
never dawned on me that that was him.
Right.
It was during the period he was doing the Pepsi commercials. You got
Yeah, it was a money grab. I mean,
Um,
and I don't mean that in a negative way, but why not get some money?
yeah, I don't just hey
Get paid.
Get paid. I mean,
You get paid by the TV show, you get paid for writing it, and you get royalties.
right.
It's a win-win situation. You get paid for the rest of your life with Three's Company.
Right.
Every time it's on TV.
So next one for you, Lisa.
Okay. Where am I? Oh, thank you, honey. The Flintstones. Meet the Flintstones. They're a modern age,
Modern Stone Age family.
a modern Stone Age family. Love the Flintstones. It was it was the first evening cartoon. It was very popular. I really believe that if it wasn't for the Flintstones, the Simpsons wouldn't have existed. I mean, yeah, not to say that they're the same show in any, basically the Flintstones was the Honeymooners. Just
Right.
a slightly expanded honeymooner set in the Stone Age. And they did kind of temper it a little. I mean, he didn't threaten to hit her all the time. By the time the Flintstones came to be, that whole, hit your wife dynamic was less acceptable. But, you know, a lot of it was the same. You know, they had the two couples who were best friends living next to each other. They, you know, they didn't work together, but they were best friends. They liked to bowl. They had a club that they went, the guys had a club that they
Right.
went to. You know, so yeah, it was basically the honeymooners in a cartoon form.
Right.
Yeah.
But it was well done, and you know, it was so funny. Like the way Fred stopped the car with his feet.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's
So,
good. Call.
Phil, next one
Um,
for you.
You're saying me? It's my turn.
Yep.
You're saying it's my turn, CJ?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Good Times. Um, love that song. I love that show. Like that was on daily when I get home from school, and it was a world that I didn't know. I grew up in a mostly white neighborhood, and so it was like just cool, interesting the way to see other people, live their lives and got through their hardships and stuff like that. But the song was written by Alan and Marilyn Berman, who were associated with the show, I believe. And the singers was or two singers. It was a duet, James Gilstrap and Blinky Williams. They recorded it at TTG Studio on Sunset Strip. So I saw a little video. Mr. Gilstrap is in a nursing home now, but he was being interviewed, and he told the story about how the song had to be altered because the producers felt that it was just a little too. Well, no, that he said that it would, in his words, it said it embarrassed black people. He said that the line that was removed was roaches roaming the hallway. Landlord is nobody's fool. He lives on the other side of town. So I thought that was an interesting anecdote that we didn't know
They
about.
to point out the roaches.
They didn't want to point out the roaches, right? And the fact that you had this class struggle, and the landlord, is completely removed from it and don't give a shit. Slumlord, presumably.
Yeah.
But one other thing I read is that the song "Moving On Up" from the Jeffersons.
Mm-hmm.
The singer of that was the same actress who played Willona in Good Times.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Who I can't think of her name right now. But...
Yeah. I know who you mean, though.
She is the mother of Lenny Kravitz.
Oh.
He was actually married.
Willona? I thought the neighbor on the Jeffersons.
Yeah, wasn't that Willona?
Was the mother
Wasn't that
of Lenny
Willona?
Kravitz. No, I'm pretty sure it was the woman that was on the Jeffersons that was married to the white guy.
Yeah, that's the one. That's the mother of Lenny Kravitz.
Yeah. No,
that's not Willona.
No, Willona was the daughter.
She was like Willona was like the sexy neighbor that JJ was macking all the time.
Okay.
She'd come over.
Okay. Yeah, I got mixed up. I'm sorry.
Yeah, you're right. I was mixing her up with Thelma.
Yeah.
Thelma was Thelma. Yeah.
One cool fact that I do know about Good Times, it was actually both a spin-off and a reboot at the same time.
What was it a reboot of?
It was a spin-off. The character of Florida was actually the maid on the Maude TV show.
Right. Now that I knew.
Which was based in a different city, different area. She had a husband named James, but she didn't have any children and all of that. She just had the husband. So when they decided to do Good Times, it was a spin-off. Her character was a spin-off of what was on Maude, but they rebooted it with it being in Chicago and having the whole family and being in the ghetto and all of that. So it was a sort of an interesting thing to take an existing character, give her own show, but it wasn't a direct lineage to Maude in the sense that her character was different on Maude than it was in Good Times. So
I don't want to take it all in a different direction, but didn't you think that like when the dad passed away on Good Times, didn't that feel like that man died in reality to the
I
point
thought I thought
John-
John Amos died
Yes,
at
it's
the
like-
time that it happened.
I mean, I was young and impressionable, but it's
Yeah.
like when I saw him in another part, I was like, well, what, what? I was
Yeah.
confused. I was-
Yeah, it was kind of
Well,
like
he just recently died, so
He did
Yeah.
just recently die,
Mhm.
but yeah,
Yeah.
he's
yeah.
done a lot
In
of.
fact, he did a guest spot on the new Suits, the Suits LA.
Right.
oh, did he?
He
did
played
that before he died?
himself.
That's right. It was just
Yeah, it was
I
a
haven't
thing where
watched
he
that one
played
yet, but
himself trying to get the lawyers to help him get a job because there was a
Oh,
job
okay.
he wanted.
I haven't watched
I
that
don't-
one yet, and I'm waiting till the season ends so that I can just watch it all at once.
It's it we've only seen 2 episodes, so I'm suspending, and I think I might want to do what you're doing. Wait until I can watch all of them. It's one of those things where sometimes you have to see 3 or 4 episodes before it really hits its stride. I mean, although I will say that I liked Suits immediately.
yeah.
The original
But-
was
It was
I don't
the
know if I-
characters.
yeah, I don't know.
Is-
I like Stephen Amell. I don't know if I'd base an entire series as him as the lead.
Right.
As an actor,
We'll see.
great, but I don't think I'd put him front and center as the guy carrying it.
I
wasn't
would more
really-
put him in the one of the more important but side roles.
Right.
Like
Wasn't
the,
a big fan of Green Arrow. Did like the wrestling one that he did. But again, having a Skarsgård next to you,
yeah.
isn't gonna hurt. So
No,
you know,
no, it's not.
Considering it was Bjorn that was next to him from Vikings,
Right.
it was the more interesting of the characters for sure.
My
Oh.
mother-in-law would have watched him read a phone book.
That's got to be an honorable mention. I love that theme song from Vikings. I totally
Yeah.
forgot about
Yeah.
that. It's an honorable mention.
Yeah.
I'm gonna do an audible here, and I am going to substitute. While I do like the Rookie Kings and Queens, but I really don't. I don't process the theme song on the Rookie, but I am going to throw
Are we going out?
Gilligan's Island in here. And one of the reasons why I particularly like Gilligan's
Hold on,
Island
hold on.
is because
You're getting ahead.
That's right.
oh,
It's
I'm sorry.
CJ's
Oh, it's
turn.
just sorry, CJ. I
So,
thought it was my turn because Philip
No.
highlighted the next song.
So
So,
my next one,
Mhm.
one of the classic shows,
mhm.
TV show that nobody should have loved, but was just too freaking funny not to love. Love and Marriage, Love and
Oh,
Marriage.
absolutely.
you
Philip
know.
hated that show. Hated it.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Married with
Wouldn't watch an
Children.
episode.
Yeah, the fact that they used Frank Sinatra, I thought was really great. They didn't want to use Frank's version; they wanted a female to sing it, but
Well, Katie Seagal could have.
Been the same. But yeah.
that was
yeah.
the general idea was they wanted somebody like Katie to sing it, but they didn't feel that the female voice fit a Sinatra song, so they just went with the original. A TV show that realistically probably shouldn't have survived the first season, survived for 11 seasons. But they were ahead of their time.
Yeah.
The joke in season 7 where Al is trying to win the radio contest or scammed his way into winning the radio contest, and the DJ shows up and Marcy walks in and the radio DJ says, "Aren't you Bruce Jenners?" Was just like, whoa, that was like so far ahead of just
Yeah,
it
yeah.
was almost like a
So
Simpson
predictive
type of thing.
almost. Yeah. I would have
So,
said Mary Lou Retton, but it was funny.
but I'm just saying, there were so many moments on that
That
show
was
that
funny.
really were, again, ahead of its time
Uh-huh.
for, and I'm sure a lot of it had to do with Amanda Beardsley, being a lesbian and whatnot, but
Right.
it really was a poignant show that, even in all its crassness, um, did kind of have a point. It did kind of have a life lesson.
A point of
Uh,
view.
so, and you couldn't help but, whether it was Al's constant troubles, whether it was
Mhm.
Marcy picking on him, whether it was Bud being the eternal loser, um, or just the fact of being a hair metal fan and them constantly throwing in like the gutter cats and Anthrax and all those bands over the years, that it made it sort of something for everybody type of show. Um,
Mhm.
so I still watch that show religiously.
And the shoe salesman bit. I mean, that was just a bit. Him being a
Right.
shoe salesman was a bit.
Yeah. So with
And
the four touchdowns, four touchdowns in a single game, it
right,
worked on
right.
a level that it shouldn't have worked. Like, it shouldn't have been as funny as it was, but there were so many
I won't
ways.
go into I won't go into what I don't like about it, because I like so much of the work that those actors did eventually. I
Yeah,
liked
separate.
Ed on the family show he did.
Oh,
Which one?
I can't stand that show. That show
Yeah.
makes me want to stab myself in the
Yeah.
face.
What is it?
Well, I like
Modern
Sons of
Family.
Anarchy.
Yeah, Sons of Anarchy was amazing. Katie is an amazing actress. She's an amazing
Oh, yeah.
singer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Christina
Even
Applegate was good in that series she did on Netflix.
Mhm.
Uh-huh.
So the thing I didn't like about it was the push button comedy aspect. It just got to point. It's the same thing. It was like a fatigue factor.
Insert joke here.
Like 2.5 Men also got into that trap where it was like
Mhm.
all Charlie had to do was like raise an eyebrow or stick it or
Well, the story's got, after Chuck Lorre gets a series started. Okay.
Mhm.
And then he sticks with it for 2 to 3 years,
Yeah.
and it's great. And then it's passed off to his whoever, his team, whatever
Right.
you want to call it, and it becomes rote. I mean, 2.5 Girls is a perfect example.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, I think he stayed with that for one season, and I continued watching it for a couple more seasons, but it got so unimaginative, repetitive, and just, it was a one note show after a while. And,
Are you a Sinatra fan?
Not a huge fan per se. Somebody I have a lot of respect for. That era of Sinatra, Sammy Davis Jr., Dean Barton. They were so multi-talented, not just as singers, but as actors, as comedians. Sammy, Dean Martin especially, they could do it all. They could sing, they could dance, they could act, they could do
Yeah.
comedy. There really wasn't anything they couldn't do.
Yeah.
You had the sort of Rat Pack group that existed.
Yeah.
And some people did what they did. Sinatra, he just sang. Don Rickles, he just did comedy. But you had the other ones, Jerry Lewis, Sammy, Dean, that they did everything. They did westerns, they did comedy movies, they did serious movies, they did the roasts. And the roasts, you go back and watch the old roasts.
Oh, those were amazing.
They're still as funny today as they were 50
Absolutely.
years ago.
I agree.
And there was no PC, there was no political correctness to them. Don Rickles got up there and just blasted everybody. And then, Wanda from Sanford and Son,
And Esther.
Yeah.
and Esther, she would get up there and she would return it right back to him, and they'd laugh. They would make fun of Richard Pryor. They'd make fun of Dean Martin's drinking. They would make fun of John Wayne's walk, and they took it on the
was
chin, and they
ridiculous.
laughed and they moved on. because that's what you did. And, people forget that
Yeah.
those days, as much as people wanted to believe that racism existed, a lot of those guys fought for each other. Sinatra
Yes.
fought for Sammy Davis Jr. to be able to perform in the main room of the Bellagio.
And to
They
stay
wanted
in the
him.
hotel.
Right.
It
And
was either Sammy's here or I'm not.
right. And excuse me. When Sinatra spoke, that wasn't somebody that you could say no to.
Right.
There were the
'Cause he
rumors
had-
of his connections to the mafia, but I think it went beyond that. It was a financial thing. Frank brought
Mhm.
in a massive crowd.
Yeah.
And were you willing to give up that much money?
Do you want him to go to a hotel that will let Sammy stay
Right.
there?
So sometimes you just kind of had to take it for what it was.
Well, like I think it was it Diane Carroll was talking about, or might not have been Diane Carroll talking about how she had to stay at a different place and come through the kitchen.
Mhm.
And I don't, maybe not Diane Carroll, but it was somebody
It very much
that,
likely might have been. It was very
yeah,
common. There was a whole thing for black entertainers when they
Mhm.
toured the South. It was called the Chitlins Tour,
right,
and they had their own hotels, their own restaurants. They made a movie about it called The Green Book,
right,
and what the Green Book was the book that black entertainers had to use. It was a it was basically a performer's Bible
Mhm.
of where they could travel, what roads they could travel, what time they could travel them,
Yeah.
hotels, restaurants, gas stations that they could stop at that were friendly to whatnot. And it's shitty to say and think about that. There was a time that you had to have something like that.
But
So
I was raised liberal, socially speaking, not
Mhm.
necessarily politically liberal, but socially liberal.
Right.
My parents didn't believe, they weren't racist, but they believed in the death penalty, so things like that. But yeah, I know people, and I had no idea about this, and I started working at my job that I'm still with 35 years, almost 35 years later. And I started working at this place, and I was like 19, 20 years old. And I was talking with the ladies, and at this point, I was referred to as the white girl in medical records. Okay. And I was the white girl. There weren't any more. It was just me and a bunch of not white people. And they talked about the fact that most of them had been in places where they saw signs that said whites only.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and it was when they were like down in the South mostly.
So that gives you a
But-
sense that you're
But yeah,
close to
so
that
I'm
period in time.
so much closer to when that was going on
Yeah.
than we realize.
It's
And
not
people
far.
say that it's supposed to be better today and you shouldn't have racists, but you know what? We're only like 2 generations away from the people that thought it was okay. That where
Racism is
whites
never going to
only,
go away.
please?
Racism is never going to go away.
No,
We have to
no, not
accept that.
completely.
What we do as a
I
society,
think it's gotten better,
yeah,
but it's not there yet.
yeah, it's never going to go away. You're always
No.
going to have those people that will be defiant in the face of it. But with social media, with camera phones and technology that we have,
Mhm.
the responsibility now is to call it out ethically and responsibly. Being aggressive towards another person is just doing the same thing as them. You're putting yourself on their level. Um, you say, hey,
You just
this
making
man did
yourself
this
look
and
bad.
this and this, and then you let it speak for itself. Calling names, being aggressive, getting in their face, being as ignorant as they are, you're just proving yourself to be on the same low level they are. And that's the problem is people don't people don't interact in assault or in a way now that, you know, you got to think about it in the term of brains over brawn. You know, if you show yourself to be able to handle a situation using your brain and your you know, your personality, as opposed to resorting to name calling, screaming, and looking like a goon, so to speak,
Right.
then you will get a lot more done. But the second you resort to name calling, trying to push someone around or intimidate them, people aren't going to take you serious because you're literally
Yeah.
putting yourself on the same level
It's
as the other
fear-based
person.
immaturity.
Yeah. So until we get past that, racism will continue to exist.
Right.
Eh,
And I don't
Sadly.
think we're ever going to it's a built-in fear of
Yeah.
the unknown, of strangers, different. Things that are different are dangerous. And it is built into our DNA somewhat. So, you know, that does come across.
So I think we're about halfway through here.
Yeah.
Yes. So Lisa, the next one for you.
Yeah, okay. I replaced the one that was on the list. Philip updated the list for me. I replaced it with Gilligan's Island. I enjoyed the show. I watched it. I thought it was funny. As I matured, not so much, but you know, that's beside the point. Because it was kind of fantastic. But and a little bit unbelievable. But
I was gonna say,
one of the things I love about the theme song in particular is Bob Denver. Because what he did was, it came to the third season, and as the star of the show, his handlers, I guess, got him a raise he was really happy with, but they told him that he needed to make demands to be taken seriously. So I think he asked for some kind of specific food on the set, and then I don't remember all the details of it, but the biggest thing is he asked for the theme song to be amended from the rest so that the professor and Marianne were included in the theme song as part of his negotiation of his contract negotiations. So I just always thought that was kind of a great little story about, and it talks about a person,
Yeah.
you know?
That's cool.
yeah, that was always a show I always found comical because even as a kid, I was like, wait, this guy can build a damn transistor radio out of a coconut, but he can't repair
Exactly.
a freaking chair and get him home. You know, like,
Right.
how kind of scientist are you, bro? Like, you know.
But they made
But-
several attempts, but they kept getting washed back up onto the island again, it seemed like.
Yeah.
All right, the next one for
Well,
you,
and
Phil.
then the guest stars were so
Right.
improbable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So I mentioned that I was going to skip ahead and I failed to do so, but I'm going to go ahead and talk about the Dukes of Hazzard.
Okay.
The song, I guess it's called Good Old Boys
Yep.
by Waylon Jennings. He produced two versions of it. One of them for the show, and then another one appeared on his album Music Man.
Mhm.
It really gained popularity during the early 2000 aughts or whatever as a ringtone. It sold 1 million ringtones one year, 2007, I think I read. But
I'm not shocked.
yeah, but I became a fan. I'm like a latter day fan of Waylon Jennings. I'm not a country music fan generally, but I love his style, the Texas aspect of his music. And we did Aaron's audio audibles on Honky Tonk Heroes, where the stories around that with Billy Joe Shaver and just
Right.
all the crap that went on around that surrounding that album and the whole outlaw country music period with Willie
Mhm.
Nelson
Mhm.
and David Allen Coe. These guys. It was a pretty
Waylon
it was a
Jennings.
pretty tumultuous time. Filled with cocaine and a lot of really wild stories and stuff.
Mhm.
And this show kind of without showing Bo and Luke Duke, abusing drugs and alcohol, it still has the spirit. It manages to
Yeah.
to translate the spirit of that time.
You know, well-meaning bad boy.
Right. You know, Smoking the Bandits,
Hmm.
Gator, all those Burt Reynolds movies
Right,
and stuff.
right.
But
And it was another
this,
show that was very poignant. It had a message all the time. And again, it was for being a show about good old boys, it was pretty woke. I mean, there was a lot of
yeah.
messages of anti-racism. There was a lot of messages of, themes
Yeah.
that wouldn't necessarily interpret as
right.
being good old boy.
The oppression of Boss Hogg, you know, and the law, but even even the officers are a little soft edged, you know.
The dog.
But that show was
I thought the dog was a character on the show.
Yeah.
was incredibly popular. I mean, I don't think people
Columbus
have any
dog.
idea how, like,
Mm,
especially
right.
I was playing baseball at the time, and it's like, you know, that's all that kids would talk about was Dukes of
Yeah.
Hazzard, the car. Oh, did you see
Yeah.
that front end buckle when it landed? You know, how many cars did they go through in last night's episode?
Probably I think it was like 6 to 8 an episode.
Yeah. And there were so many things about that show that, um, all of them could sing, all of them could act, all of them could, John Schneider's still out here singing, still acting. Tom, he does musical theater now. He can still sing. Time hasn't really been kind to Catherine Bach all that much, but you know,
The Days of
um,
Dukes.
Denver
Remember when
Pyle.
remember when they had a contract struggle and they brought in their cousins?
Mhm.
I guess that attests to how popular it was because
That
you know
kept going.
they realized we need to renegotiate our deal, you know. So they brought in their
Mhm.
and they were like identical. I mean, they had a blonde dude and a brunette dude, you know, with like a
Yeah.
half
Yeah.
perm or whatever. I mean, it's like total
Yeah.
replacements. But
Yeah.
And I knew Denver Piles when the show started. I knew him as old number 7 from Grizzly Adams.
Mhm.
So, that was another show that,
yeah.
almost made my list because that was another show that it was only on for like the 3 seasons. But I watched it religiously, and that's a TV show I would like to see them reboot.
Yeah.
I think Grizzly Adams, if you took the theme of it, the basis on it, and took the guy who's running from the law, escapes into the mountains, say the Appalachian Mountains, because Appalachians, big area, a lot of land to cover. You could sort of give it a conservation type of
75%
message.
hillbilly.
Give it sort of you could give it sort of a conservationist edge to it. Teach kids about the environment and animals and that kind of stuff, and still keep that sort of procedural edge to it. And
Yeah.
again, a lot of really good stars that you could put in a role like that.
Yeah. I mean, it would have to be very different if you said it
Yeah,
in a more modern time,
right.
but I think it could be done and done well if done by the correct people.
Exactly. That's the thing. Like there's a lot more room to work with that show as opposed to, say, Little House on the Prairie.
Right.
Because
You could even do the period piece,
right.
you know.
When you talk about Little House on the Prairie, people are going to expect
Things.
Nell's Mercantile. They're going to expect the church. They're going to expect that house,
The dock.
the sawmill. And if you don't get those pieces right out of the gate, it doesn't matter how good the actors are.
And really, if you think about it, I know they're talking about making it woke and adding races, but I don't know. I mean, would other races be historically accurate in a town of that size?
In certain areas,
I mean,
it was.
yeah, you had. I know that, like, I was recently reading a book set during that time period, and there was a whole Mexican town. Like, there was the town, and then next door there was a Mexican town, and it was set in like Nebraska.
What I'm saying,
And
you
apparently,
had
this is fairly accurate historically speaking.
right,
So they
and you
could
had
bring in
episodes of Little House on
Mexicans.
the Prairie.
A Chinese person would not be unreasonable.
Right,
You know, they could do a black person. You know, they could make his best friend the black guy.
right.
You know,
So there were episodes of Little House on the Prairie where
Mhm.
one particular episode they worked as dynamite or dynamite transporters,
right,
and there was a third person who got paired up with the guy who worked for the company. He was an expert in moving the dynamite without blowing it up. And he was the
right.
black guy. And of course, the third guy, he was racist. He didn't want to work with the black guy. Of course, Charles was like the sort of,
Shut up.
you right. So, and there was an episode where they again worked with dynamite on the railroad with the Chinese workers. So there were episodes that addressed racism and
Right.
addressed that kind of thing. So it was historically, yes, you could absolutely do that. Again, it's the characters are going to be irrelevant if you don't get the details right out of the gate. You
Right.
know, if you try to put them in a town called Locust Grove as opposed to Walnut Grove, people are immediately going to be like, "Oh, it wasn't Locust Grove, it was Walnut Grove." Blah 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 blah. Blah. And you know, you're not even going to get off the ground.
And then how loyal are they going to be to the source material? You know,
According to
because
what they say, they're going to be more like the book than what the TV show actually was. Because
right, because I
apparently
know
Michael
the
Landon
TV
took a lot
show
of
was kind of a little bit
yeah,
not completely the book,
right.
but
So
some of that
according
was, some of that was story, and some of that was kind of it became necessary
right.
for I don't, yeah. And they did. I think they niced it up a little.
Well, obviously,
Yeah.
for the time period.
Mhm.
Um, so you did. Lost my place again. You just did. What was the one you just did? I just lost my
I
place.
just did Gilligan's Island number
Gilligan's
6.
Island. Next one for you, Phil.
Um, so Chico and the Man, Pedro
Yes.
Feliciano. I think that's another really strong entry. The song actually stands on its own. Outside of the show, kind of like Welcome Back, Kotter. Um, Pedro Feliciano, Feliz Navidad is probably what a lot of people know him by, but just a great musician, and it's just a great song. The show was a
Great TV
phenomenon. Freddie
show.
Prinze was a phenomenon, and
Freddie
for
Prinze
people who don't
Jr.
know, he ended his life way too young, and
Yeah.
he was a superstar. And so he just struggled with mental health or something, and
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
but it was a good show.
Son
And his
became
son's
an
really
actor.
a good actor.
Yeah. The TV show that was really ahead of its time.
Yeah.
It really, you know, I think again another TV show that you could probably do today that there were some really great actors that you could throw in there that would make it um you know give somebody like Luis Guzman a role in it and he could just go crazy as a side character um
There
but
is a show called The Upshaws, and it's
right
available on streaming. I don't know if you can see it anywhere else, but
I,
it's really funny. And it's got a similar vibe. It is different, but it's got a similar vibe. Where it's got the kind of crotchety owner and the mechanic who's a little bit, mouth and
mhm.
the mouthy mechanic. There is more of a family vibe to it because we do get to know that the crotchety owner is the sister-in-law of the upstart mechanic.
Well, you know
But
what?
it's similar.
Rather than these reboots, that I
Mhm.
liked those one-offs they did. I don't remember if it was during COVID or right towards the end of COVID,
Yeah,
but remember they had Woody Harrelson reenact an
yeah,
episode of
Oh, those were
Ar
cool.
yeah,
Yeah.
Archie Bunker, and I think
Those
they did.
yeah, those were Yeah, but those were like, love letters.
But they were kind of like event
Yeah.
television, they were kind of cool. It's like you knew
Yeah,
it wasn't going to
live.
lead to like a whole series
was
of shows,
live.
but it was just
Yeah.
cool.
And they had
Right.
other actors portraying the roles.
Yeah, I liked it.
Yeah. I did too. I enjoyed those.
Mhm.
Yeah. Okay.
So the next
I
one
think
for
you're
me,
next.
um, Drew Carey show,
Yeah.
Cleveland Rock. This is a really fun theme song with the dance and everything.
Uh-huh.
Obviously, the Cleveland Rocks thing comes in season 3. The first 2 seasons, it actually used the Mick Ronson tune. Um, Some Like It Hot, I think is the name of it. Um, so I think the first 2 seasons is different than the last like 4 or 5 seasons. Um, but really great show, really
Yeah.
great cast.
Yeah.
Mimi was just one of them characters who was
Oh
so
yeah.
great. Um,
That was a
her and
song by Mott the Hopple, right?
those. So the first 2 seasons, it was a Mick Ronson one, but the second one was Presidents of the United States of America, the ones who
Okay.
did the song "Stump."
Right. Yeah. Sorry to
So
interrupt you.
no, you're good. Um, so that's my next one. Lisa, next one for you.
That 70s show, Down the Street by Big Star. We also did an Audibles. Didn't we do an Edibles on Big Star?
Yeah.
Yeah, we
Number
did
one
on that
record.
number. Yeah, their record was called Number One Record. I really liked the 70s show. I thought that the theme song very much fit the show. I like that they did a video with the cast singing the song. Or they were. I don't think they were actually singing. I think Big Star was. It was still Big Star, but they were. They faked it, and I thought that was really good. It's just an excellent show. I think it was well done. I think that the extenuation of that. I think it's that '90s show. They
Mhm.
tried to do that '80s show, and that did not do well at all. It was
It's
just
because they didn't tie
bad.
it to that '70s show. It
No,
was
it wasn't.
separate.
They didn't tie it in enough. There were no characters that were similar, and it just didn't feel good.
Yeah.
Maybe I just had maybe it was too soon. But that '90s show is actually really cute.
Mhm.
It does a good job. And and they use the previous characters very well.
Mhm.
Yeah. So okay, honey.
But I've just said Cheap Trick was actually did the
Mhm.
version for the TV show, but
Uh-huh.
Right.
it is there's
It's
a
a Big
Big
Star
Star song.
song.
Right.
Yeah.
But
But it's
okay,
Cheap Trick
so
for the series.
yeah,
And they actually added the "We're All Right" at the end.
right,
Mhm.
Yeah.
from one of their songs, one of their hits.
Mhm.
So my next one is Little Boxes. We used to love that show, Weeds. That's another
Mhm.
HBO show that really hit a home run, I think. But Little Boxes was written by someone named Malvina Reynolds. She was a folk singer back in the 60s, but Pete Seeger, who was a little more famous, took it and kind of popularized it. And this song is kind of, have you ever heard somebody say, oh, that's ticky tacky? Like, oh,
Mhm.
that pass interference calls ticky tacky. Or, it's like, it's it really, you're not really, it's cheap. It kind of comes from this song where it they're singing about the prefab houses that are being built and like these Los Angeles suburbs. So I thought that was interesting. And so, like I said, my criteria was I had to like the show and I had to remember the song without having to look the lyrics up. And this one
Yeah.
applies on all those counts. So.
Right. That was our criteria. And the thing about Weeds, the little boxes, ticky tacky, it was sung in a different style every season. So I'm assuming it was a different person
I
or a
think it may have
different
been,
artist.
yeah.
But each season had a different style for the songs, and sometimes I didn't like them, and most of the time I did. Sometimes I really, really liked them. Sometimes it was like okay, let's get through the theme song. And other times it was like, no, why did they do this? You know, I almost wanted to turn off the sound. So
Right.
that was. Did you were you a Weeds fan?
I never saw it.
Really? It's
It
good.
wasn't a
If
show
you're
that
looking for a
ever popped
series
up on my
to
radar. And
if you're looking for a series to go through, we thoroughly loved that series. It was good. Both of us.
I have
So
got
it
so many.
crosses the please?
I say I've got so many that I'm currently watching or trying to get through or rewatching that
Yeah.
I'll
Right.
probably be the next 5 years before I get to anything.
I
Yeah,
get
I
it.
keep getting sucked into new stuff. Like,
Right, right.
I'm trying to watch some that I didn't watch in the past, and I'm trying to catch up on some others. And then something like Landman will come out, or something
Uh-huh.
like The Old Man will come out, and I'll get sucked into it, and I'll be like, "Damn it, I shouldn't be watching this because I need to be watching something else I started." But you know,
Really
it's
loved Landman. That was awesome.
Yeah.
oh, I love Billy Bob Thornton. It's like
Mm,
he's he plays that character so well,
Yeah.
you know, and it's really the same variety of character of everything else he's done. He always sort of plays the borderline alcoholic or raging alcoholic who's sort of an asshole but can be very serious. And some of the lines in Landman were so great. Just
mhm.
they were like, the one the one where he's trying to do the thing with the landowner. And he's like, "Sir, I'm offended by that." He's like, "What part? The pussy or the money?" And he's like, and the guy's just, and it was like, when he said it, I was just like, that's such a Billy Bob Thornton line. Like,
Mhm.
nobody else could have delivered that line the same way,
That
and
show
then
was
the
But
great.
line,
the wife and daughter walking around in
yeah,
almost no clothing in front of everybody, that was just funny. And when
yeah,
they took the people at the nursing home to the strip club,
Yeah.
yeah, when he brings her
that
home
I
when she's drunk,
loved that. I was like, ooh, I want to do that. Let's
yeah.
do that. Of course,
The,
we don't have
the
the
other
money to do that, but
the other line that I really loved was when he brought her home drunk and gets her out of the truck and she's like, "Daddy, don't let me do this again." And he's like, "Well, honey, I'd warn you against the people you hang out with, but unfortunately, she has custody." And I was just like, it was another line that nobody but Billy Bob Thornton could have delivered it the
yeah,
way he
the
does.
way,
Like
yeah,
he just,
right.
Right.
whether
That
it's
line would
Goliath,
not come across well.
yeah, whether it's Landman, Goliath,
Oh yeah,
Mm-hmm.
Goliath.
Fargo,
Yeah.
Yeah.
just he has this ability to deliver the lines in a sort of a snarky way, but then he can turn and be like really deadly serious.
Right.
Yeah.
I'd like to
You
see
know,
him more often. I'd like to see him do a little bit more work because it seems like there's a lot of gaps in between his projects.
yeah.
Well, he can afford the
Well,
gaps.
Right.
well,
He works
he's a
on
musician.
projects he likes.
He's a musician as well, so he tours quite a bit
Yeah.
with
Oh,
his
okay.
band. He has a
I
band
didn't
called the
realize that.
Box Cutters. Oh, he's brilliant country musician. Really, really good. He's as good as Dwight Yoakam. He's in the
Oh,
same
yeah.
style as what Dwight
Oh,
Yoakam does.
Dwight Yoakam and I share a birth date.
Nice. Um,
Me, Dwight Yoakam, Weird Al, Ang Lee, Johnny Carson. Mhm.
all
I'll
right,
tell
so
you
you
mine.
did
October 23rd.
so he
Philip
did
Philip doesn't like to talk about his.
we
It's
um
Flag Day. They're thinking about making it a special holiday now.
uh, so the next one for me was
Mhm.
a show that I sort of wandered upon accidentally as a kid. I really liked it. It was a funny show, and it was one that had a lot of lines that were very quotable. Um, the main one being, "What you talking about, Willis?" um, really
Yeah.
great theme song. Um,
Mhm.
it takes different strokes.
Mhm.
um, so it's different strokes. It's actually written by a guy who was infamous for writing theme songs. He was an actor himself. It was written by Alan Thicke. Um,
Mhm. Oh, okay.
Sung by Alan Thicke, Gloria Loring, Linda Harmon, and Gene Morford. So there were multiple singers of it. But Alan actually wrote the theme song for this. He wrote the theme song for um name just the one with Tootie and Mrs. Garrett.
Okay.
Facts of
Different.
Life.
Yeah, Facts of Life.
Yeah, he wrote Facts of Life, $25,000 Pyramid, the TV show that he starred in with Kirk Cameron,
Mm-hmm.
Family
Growing
something like
Pains.
Growing Pains. He wrote that. He wrote about 8 very famous TV and theme songs.
Mm.
And then of course, I think we all know his idiot son.
Mm.
If you watch The Mask, that
He
is
seems
his
all
son.
right. Yeah, I watch The Masked
He's
Singer. I do.
I don't know. He's
'Cause I just want to see. Often, what I'll do is I don't watch it while it's on. I watch it
Oh,
after,
yeah.
and then I just fast forward because I want to know who it is.
That one song he wrote was really disgusting. What,
Oh yeah,
Blurred Lines or whatever?
yeah, blurred lines.
yeah, like I don't know. There's something about Robin that just
Icky.
kind of rubs me the wrong way. Like I'm perfectly good with Bruno Mars and the majority of the pop singers, but there's something about Robin that just sort of I don't know. I can't put my finger on it. I just
Yeah.
sort of
Um,
look it up as not for me. Next,
I know there's a very what you would call woke story about the divorce. Because when Alan Thicke and his wife, she was also an actress, I can't remember who she was right now, but Alan Thicke and his wife got divorced, and they were so concerned about the welfare of their children, and I love this about them that they cared this much that he went and he bought the house next door and he just lived next door.
yeah,
So they were
that's kind of an
kind of a
uncommon story.
blended divorce family.
I know Colin Ray did the same thing when him and his wife divorced. He actually
Now, who's
bought
he?
a house. Do
Colin
what?
Wright?
Colin Ray, the country singer,
Oh, okay.
the one who wrote Little Rock and Love Me, and when he divorced his wife, the house directly behind them on the street behind them was for sale. So he bought that house, and then they took the fence down between them and just built a path between the new houses so that their daughters could just walk through the backyard back and forth between the houses.
I do
And
know also one of Alan Thicke's sons had he was type 1 diabetic.
yes,
Hmm.
so
But I'm not
Lisa,
sure what I don't know if it was Robin or not.
Where are we at in the
Mhm.
pecking order here, CJ?
so we should be at number 7.
Number
And I
7.
think your list is 1 short. You only have 9 on your list.
Okay, okay. I was looking at that. I was wondering about that.
You
Yeah.
can have
So
the one
Lisa,
I
next
got.
one for you.
Oh, for me,
Yep.
hun, where are we at? Frasier. I'm a little conflicted on this one because I really liked the show. I think the song is okay, but I also think it's kind of iconic.
Right.
Because it's like tossed salad and scrambled eggs. Not a combination I'm a fan of. But it's a great, I just got home from whatever, you know. And I
Right.
feel like it's more of a, if he had been an entertainer. Because, an entertainer gets home, he's just done a show, and he comes home and that's what's in the fridge. Whereas Frasier being a psychologist, I mean, I guess he was sort of an entertainer since he was doing a radio show, and he did become famous, and he ended up doing a TV show as well. But yeah, you know, but the song does speak to the show.
Yeah.
Anybody else? Nope. Okay,
No.
good. Hmm.
The next one for you, Phil.
All right. So I really liked Moonlighting. It's kind of a shooting star. It kind of wore thin after a couple seasons, but it burned bright for a while. So the theme song for that, Moonlighting by Al Jarreau, who is a tremendous jazz singer, great credentials. Did a couple different versions of it. It was, of course, a condensed version for the episode. The only time it was ever fully played was after the pilot, from what I read. During the credits at the end, the entire song was played then, but it was never played again fully. But it did appear on one of Al's later albums, and the witty repartee and the sexual innuendo and
the tension between the two of them, they actually hated each other,
right.
but it was still a like will they won't they situation. And as usual, the shark jump was when they did, when they will. So especially because he just became that character just changed so much when they started sleeping together. It was not even good.
Yeah,
it wasn't funny.
It kind of jumped the shark.
Yeah, very much jumped the shark with that. I did enjoy the Taming of the Shrew episode specifically, and towards the end where they started using the side cast a little more. I thought that was really I thought that was well done. I felt like I really liked those characters better. So
Beautiful. Next one for me, probably, I think next to MASH. If you were to poll 100 people for the greatest TV theme song, this would probably be in the top 3. It was an original song by Andrew Golden, but for the TV show, they had Cynthia Fee sing it. And it's "Thank You for Being a Friend."
Oh yeah.
Golden Girls. It was just, it's such a, I mean, it was just one of those songs. It kind of reminded you of like a Billy Joel type of song. It's instantly singable. It was an earworm, and even today's generation, it's still beloved, whether it was Dorothy or whatever of the characters, Blanche or Rose, whatever one you loved. Just a timeless show. So timeless that Nathan Lane has basically created a new gay version of it, which was originally what it was supposed to be. One of the roommates was supposed to be a gay male, but NBC said, no, too ahead of its time. People won't accept it. So that's where the Rose character came in at the end. And Nathan, who was supposed to play the gay character in the original Golden Girls, has now created him and Matt Broom, I think it's how you say his last name, dude from White Collar.
Oh, okay. I know who you're talking about.
Matt, I think it's Broomer, something like that.
Broomer,
yeah.
Sure.
But anyways, he's in the first season. Of course, the White Collar, not a reboot, it's a continuation. So the new, version of that, and I can't wait for that because that was another show that was brilliant. Really,
and that's
really.
one of the shows that's on my list. I didn't watch it at the time because something else. You know how it is. I mean,
such a great show. Really gonna miss a little bald dude. I can't ever remember his name, but Willie Garrison.
Okay.
One that was in Sex and the City, and he was in Hawaii Five-0 and White Collar. So many other where he played that sort of great snarky, overeducated guy. So that's mine. Golden Girls. Next one for you, Lisa.
Okay. True Blood. Do Bad Things to You. I really liked to sing that.
Yeah.
I would karaoke that if I could.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was I thought it was the first season was good. It was very true to the books. After that they kind of went off the rails on the TV show. I didn't think it was I thought it was pretty good still. It just, towards the end, it just became about them being naked. So, you know, hot naked people is what it became. And I felt like there wasn't enough story for me. It definitely went so far away from those books. And I've read all the books. They could have done all the books.
Right.
And people would have, all the fans of the books would have watched the show, that's for sure. So yeah.
Wasn't it based on a book series called The Southern Companion or something?
The Suki Stackhouse Mysteries.
Oh, okay. I'm thinking of something
Okay.
different then.
So Suki
I-
Stackhouse was the main character, but they just did very different things with her. And she did have there was a throuple situation, and she fell in love with the vampire,
I just loved the way they walk into a bar and crack open a bottle of blood,
yeah.
sit down at the bar and start chugging that shit.
Well, it was
Yeah,
a
I made it-
synthetic.
I made it to the end of season 1, and then I got sidetracked and never went back to it. So
Yeah,
Um,
and really the other seasons, I kind of started losing interest at season 2 as well, because it just wasn't the
But
same.
you hung in there and watched it all.
No, I did not.
I thought
I
you
didn't
did.
see the last I know I didn't. I'm pretty sure I saw maybe 3 episodes of the last season.
Okay,
I just didn't.
I'm not gonna argue with you.
There was something else, and I got pulled in another direction, and
yeah, that was me.
And honestly, I get bored watching the show. It was boring watching, not to say that I'm just not titillized by nudity. And so
Especially my nudity, apparently. No, I'm just kidding.
No, your nudity. I like your nudity, baby. Don't you worry. Don't I woof whistle every time you every time you make it?
You do, yeah.
I literally say woof whistle because I cannot whistle. So I just say, ooh, baby, woof whistle.
All right, we're a family show here.
As my
Sorry.
friend likes to say.
Yeah.
All right.
So
it's
next one
back
for you,
to me.
Phil. Yeah.
Starsky and Hutch. It's my only instrumental on here. I didn't know what the name of it was, but it's called Gotcha, and that fits.
Yeah.
I feel like the Sabotage video is hugely influenced by the cut screen and everything. The cut screen, the intro, the introduction, the video montage from Starsky and Hutch, and it's like really action packed. And you see the cool El Camino, peeling out, and and they're sliding over the car. They got their guns drawn, and
Yeah.
that's kind of my groove. 70s pop culture is kind of my thing.
Yeah.
And I love when I was a kid, we'd play Starsky and Hutch on the playground,
Yeah.
and we'd
Right.
like who's gonna be Starsky, who's gonna be Huggy, who's gonna be whatever.
Huggy Bear.
Yeah, and we were both born in the 60s, so
Yeah. There you go.
late 60s, but we're Gen X. Mm-hmm.
All right, we're getting there.
Okay.
All right.
All right.
Next one for me. Short-lived series. I think it was only on like 2 or 3 seasons. Sung by Joey Scarberry. But this is a perfect example of a show where the theme song was much better than the actual show.
Mm.
But it was Greatest American Hero. Believe it or not.
Yeah.
It was another one of those songs that was instantly recognizable, instantly catchy. It was sort of an earworm. You'd hear it and you'd walk around for hours singing, "Believe it or not, I'm walking on it." It's very much in that vein of what the Golden Girls were. And it was just sort of that feel good 80s style song. It sort of reminded you of like Billy Joel or Leon Russell or somebody like that did that real Dan Fogelberg, that real syrupy type catchy damn tunes. So that's my next one. That's my
Not
number.
quite yacht rock, but definitely mellow, soft
Very
rock.
very much in that vein of yacht rock. like pretty close. That's a
Yeah.
song that could easily have been sung by Christopher Cross or Pablo Cruz or any of those bands of that
I
area.
feel like it would have been a little bit different if Christopher Cross sang it, but still
Yeah,
very catchy.
yeah. And I don't know why. No idea why Pablo Cruz just popped into my head out of nowhere for that. Like, it's just such a random ass.
Michael
I don't
McDonald.
even know why I said that. It
Yeah,
just
Michael
popped into my
McDonald.
head. Um, you know. Yes, that's how much of a music geek I am. Uh,
That's what there's a music god, right?
And
yeah.
I sit here when we're on with you and I am like, I'm not worthy. I'm not worthy. Because I mean, you know, I would say maybe 60% of your references are just like whoosh right over
Oh
my
yeah.
head.
Well, yeah, he's all in.
Yeah.
He knows all the new releases and stuff. He
Right,
can,
right. I mean,
It's
I could say the new girl, Carpenter. Uh
oh, Sabrina Carpenter.
yeah, I like Sabrina Carpenter because I don't necessarily love her music. But I like her because she was on I watched every single episode of Girl Meets World. I thought it was really good. I thought the acting was good. I loved the tie-in to the past. So, you know.
Yeah. I it's just one of them things. Music, when I was in the front seat of that truck,
Mhm.
it was the early 70s. It was
Yeah.
like 73 through 78.
Mhm.
There were no cell phones, laptops.
Right.
There were no TVs, no video games, no
Or
nothing. I
radio.
had books and I had music. That was all I had
Yeah.
for 24 hours a day when we were in that truck and I was in the front seat just sitting there. So I read and I would all the records, all the 8 tracks, all the cassettes we had, I'd pull the liner notes out and I would just read them. So, that's why like even now I have a massive book collection. I still read. I still
Oh
listen
yeah.
to everything under the sun because depending on where I was at the time, I didn't get one kind of music. I got Southern rock and rock music if I was with dad. I got classic country if I was at grandpa's house because he listened to Hank Sr., Fern Young, Hank Snow, that kind of stuff. But the radio at the time was, Alabama and Kenny Rogers and Ronnie Millsap. So I got all of that. Then if I was at my Aunt Connie's house, my cousins, they were into punk. So I got, Dirty Rotten Imbeciles and GBH and Madball and all of that. And then I went to California. Dad got pissed at me because I did some boneheaded shit. Said, you're going to live with your mother in California. That was 1983, 3 blocks off of Sunset Strip. So I literally got shipped to the beginning of the hairband era. Quiet Riot, Hollywood Rose, all those Def Leppard were just starting. So I was there at the beginning of that, and then I came back, and Prince had just blown up. So I got thrust into Prince, and Dad had married my stepmom. She was a Motown fanatic, so I got Motown all the time because she would listen to Motown. So I've sort of been bounced around like this ping pong ball, and sort of
Musically.
just cast into these lives of people who were music fans, and I sort of absorbed it and ended up with this knowledge of music that isn't good for anything other than this.
Perfect for
Doesn't
this.
earn me a dime, but it's fun and it keeps
Like our
me out
friend
of
Thea, our friend Thea keeps saying you need to have CJ on more often when we do our music episodes. So.
I'm
Yeah.
always available depending on what it is and if I like it or not. There's not too much that I don't like, but
Yeah.
don't ask me to do anything with this Smashing Pukeheads or Jack White and we'll be good.
All right. Noted.
Okay.
Yeah. Not a fan of the walking penis or the other walking penis.
Well, like Philip's sister is trying to pick a Leon Russell album
Oh, such
to
an
do.
underrated great singer.
So I think she's leaning towards the circusy one.
What's it called? Carney or something?
Yeah,
Yeah.
something like that. Carney
Yeah.
or Carnival,
Mhm.
whatever. So she's
It's called
leaning
The
towards
Carney.
that. She's just hesitant to be on the show because she's kind of shy about it. but we're hoping to get that going, pretty soon once she settles on the album. She's pretty much said she wants to do Carney. She just doesn't. It's not the album; it's the show, being on the podcast. So
Right.
we'll see. Maybe you could do that album
Yeah,
on.
I'm a huge fan of
Okay.
Leon Russell. He's, like I said, another one of them guys. I love the songwriters.
And I wasn't really aware of him until she mentioned him, and yeah, I do like some of the stuff he does. I'm also thinking about bringing on Megan Trainor Greatest Hits, simply
Okay.
because I think it would annoy Aaron.
Megan,
That's a good reason.
Megan's one
Yeah.
of the more digestible current new stars, as
Right.
far as pop
Well,
goes.
I know
Um,
I want whatever album it is that includes "Like I'm Gonna Lose You," because that song, it's like my heart, you know. If we do a recommitment ceremony, for our 32nd anniversary, because we didn't do it for our 30th, I would want to walk down the aisle to that song.
Smile when you say that.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, it's not
yeah,
gonna happen. I know it's
yeah,
not gonna happen.
I love the
Yeah.
singer-songwriters. Dan Fogelberg, Leon Russell, Leo Sayer, Tom Waits, a huge fan of Tom Waits. Air Supply is one of my, I don't want to call it, you know, dirty secrets or anything, but I'm a massive Air Supply. Air Supply was just one of those bands where um they're one of three artists that I always say you don't realize you know as much as you do.
Right. Yeah.
Huey Lewis
I
and the News, Rick Springfield, and Air Supply are three artists. If you put on their greatest hits, you'll literally sit there and catch yourself singing every single song. And
Right.
you're like, I didn't realize I knew 15 Air Supply songs. I didn't realize I knew 15 Huey Lewis songs. But you know them by heart. You sing them instantly.
Mhm.
Whether it's
Yeah.
Hard Rock and Roll, whether it's I Want a New Drug, whether it's, uh,
All out of love.
I mean, there's so many, right? And
Mhm.
it's like, I didn't realize I knew that. And I do that on occasion. The Cars are another one who
Mhm.
I didn't realize the Cars had so many damn
Hits
hits.
or songs
And
that got good radio play, more than likely.
right. So again, Air Supply is a band that I could talk about endlessly. And I know people all the time when I say Air Supply, they're like, oh, I would never take you for an Air Supply fan. Oh yeah.
Why not?
That's- Get me in a place with karaoke and get enough beer in me. I guarantee you, I will commit murder in the first degree for making love out of nothing at all. Because that's just one of those great songs. And again, massive fan of Jim Steinman. Total Eclipse of the Heart, making love out of nothing at all. Most of the Meatloaf songs. The guy was just legendary for writing. She did True Blood,
Mhm.
One Girls.
Mhm.
So where are we at?
I think it's you, isn't it? Is
Yeah,
it back to Lisa?
I did True Blood.
No, I just
not-
did
not-
Greatest American Hero.
Oh yeah.
So,
Okay.
It's back to Lisa.
Okay.
so
Actually,
Yeah.
we've already discussed this show. Well, no, because Orange is the New Black. You've Got Time by Roger Spector.
Regina.
Regina Spector. Sorry. It was nominated for a Grammy for Best Song, for visual media, and I just think that show is so. It was perfect for its time, and it really tells a story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also the actress who's also in
Mhm.
Poker Face
Um.
and Russian Doll.
Oh.
Awesome.
Natasha.
Yeah, Natasha Lyonne.
Yeah, Natasha Lyonne.
She's great.
She is. We're like really big fans of
But that,
hers.
to me, that song has kind of a post-punk feel to it.
Yeah.
Kind of.
Oh, I know what it is.
Yeah.
Okay.
No,
So Phil,
little-
your list had 9 and Lisa's had 11. That's where
Okay.
really.
that's
Yeah.
it look weird where I'm at. So
I backfilled mine. I got one for you when it's my turn.
okay, cool.
You can have my last one because it's your turn.
Yeah.
I don't want your last one because
Okay.
that's I tried to base it. Not that I don't like the song. I tried to base it on shows that I liked.
Okay.
So
You like Suits?
that was number 10 for Lise.
Yeah, that was number 10. We'll do her last one as an honorable mention at the end.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. So
Yeah.
it's on to me. So I'm going to go based on what I just told you. Based I have to like the show. I mentioned Vikings before, and if I didn't
Mhm.
mention that, it would have been a tremendous oversight because I love the sound of that. It sounds like a Viking horn almost, playing at times.
Mhm.
It's like you can almost imagine the ship coming through. It's called If I Had a Heart, and if you watch the series,
Mhm.
the last scene with Lagertha and Ragnar was almost predestined. It was just that show was amazing. I thought I was going to like the continuation of it on Netflix, and it introduced like Leif Erikson and names of Vikings that you might be more familiar with or something. But it didn't capture
Yeah.
the same
It didn't have that
feel
same feel.
of
Mm-mm.
the original.
Yeah.
And my mom was actually she loved that show because all the dudes in it.
Bjorn.
My mom was 84 years old and she would watch it. We'd sit there and watch it together.
And she'd be like horning after all the guys.
Like it's so fun. It was
She would have watched, like I said, that if that guy took his shirt off, she'd have watched him read a phone book.
incidentally, my coworker
Yeah.
watched it for the exact same reason, Frank. Yeah.
Frank.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, we're not even. Frank was.
Oh, I
gay.
should. I
I
told
know
myself
he was
before it started
closeted,
that
but he
I
was
was going to
closeted
not
gay.
mention his name because he would go on a riff. But anyway, there
Yeah,
you go.
it's very funny when they did the second part, the spinoff. I wanted to like it because my family history directly is direct lineage of Eric the Red and Leif Erikson.
Oh wow.
Wanted to like it. I
Couldn't.
couldn't get past the first season. I was just like,
Yeah.
it just didn't have the same spirit. It didn't have the same fire in the belly. The whole Christian versus pagan thing just really was like, it was such a minute part of what their lives were
Mm-hmm.
that they leaned on that way too hard for a storyline. And it
And they
just,
could have done more.
yeah, like it just, all of the adventures
Not even
that
more,
Eric the
just
Red and Leif were responsible for, and they did some legendary things, and they totally sort of glossed over those to concentrate on shit that really wasn't as important. And
Yeah, there was something. I agree with you. It was more. The original was more rustic. It seemed more organic. Whether it was
Yeah.
historically accurate or not, it sure as hell felt like it. But the second one, I don't know. The armor had a little more shine to it, and the armies were a little more refined. And I don't know. There's like if you ever watch Game of Thrones, it's like a fantasy world. It's not a historically accurate world. It's a
Right.
fantasy, and everything is like amazingly, rendered. And I felt like the version on Netflix, it seemed like it was kind of venturing into that area with it. I don't know. Anyway,
yeah. So my
we're-
last one, it was the only cartoon I chose, but we're going to be doing an episode coming up soon of the greatest cartoon characters, and this will be on the list. But it's Scooby Doo. Where are you?
Where are you?
It was a song that was written for the TV show, ended up being a hit for a band that didn't actually exist. So
Yeah, I love stories like that.
yeah, like it was a number 3 song, I think, for a band that didn't actually exist. So that's kind of cool. In and of itself, that
Right. All right.
wild things in music, even in even a non-real cartoon man can have a hit song. So that's my final one. And Lisa, we got one final one for you. We'll give it an honorable mention. Go ahead and tell everyone what it is.
And hun, next time we need to number them so we don't go over.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Know what to expect next time, right? We'd probably do a combined list if we
Yeah.
redo
Yeah.
this.
Well,
Still working
and one
progress,
thing
but-
was Philip I wanted Peaky Blinders, but Philip took it and he said I couldn't have it.
That's because I like the show
Oh, you
better.
didn't?
Oh no, maybe
No,
not.
I'm not saying that, but I think we could have overlapped.
You're right. You're right.
Okay.
You're right.
The
Absolutely.
last one on my list is Suits. Greenback Boogie. I don't really. One thing I feel is that the ultimate feel of the show Suits was it wasn't really just about the money. I mean, it was. They did chase the deals, and that was an important part of the show. But they also were not. They tried to be ethical.
Mhm.
And that was one of the things. And it was basically your average buddy cop movie in a sense, you know. But I mean, they were chasing money instead of criminals, but basically they were kind of buddy cops, you know,
Yeah.
in a sense. And that always, it's kind of like the way Star Trek was basically a Western. You know, the original Star Trek TV show was basically a Western, just set in space.
Yeah. It was a buddy show for sure. Harvey and what was his name? Pete or something.
Yep. And the song was by I'm a Robot. It was a B-side bonus track from their album Another Man's Treasure. Suits LA has continued the tradition of using the song.
Beautiful.
I'm still kind of on the like we said about Suits LA. I'm kind of still on the fence.
Yeah, I was gonna watch it, but I'm currently rewatching Law and Order SVU, and I got sucked into Reacher's new season. And in the process of that, I also got sucked into a new series on Amazon called The House of David, about David from the Bible.
Okay.
I got sucked
Yeah, we
into
haven't
it.
started that.
I got sucked into it because it has Stephen Lang playing a prophet, and I thought that was an interesting choice. Of you have this show that is all like Jewish characters, and then you have like Stephen Lang playing the prophet Samuel. So I thought that was, and he's actually Jewish, so it's not like he's playing a character that he shouldn't be playing.
Right.
It's
It's not appropriation.
Yeah, it's just when you think of people who would play a biblical prophet, he doesn't exactly like jump to the top of the list immediately as somebody that would play that
Right.
character, but he's doing a really amazing job. Like I'm
Not quite
very
as bad as Robin Hood being played by what's his face?
Michael Keaton.
No,
Oh.
my
Oh.
favorite.
I've seen
actor.
so many
Val
I've seen
Kilmer?
so many versions of the Robin Hood thing.
Honey, you've got so many quote unquote favorite actors.
Well, there goes there goes my quip. Whatever.
Okay.
What's his
I know.
Kevin Costner. Kevin
Oh,
Costner.
Kevin Costner.
Okay.
I thought that's like the worst casting in the history of movies.
Yeah, that was. Yeah.
Or Jax Teller playing King Arthur.
Yeah.
It was an interesting choice. I was like, okay, not the worst casting I've ever seen, but
Yeah.
probably not the first person I would have called to play King Arthur.
Right.
I don't look at Charlie Hunnam and think King Arthur,
Well, yeah, and yeah, like 50 Shades of Grey.
like
I felt
Like-
that was kind of,
Well, I mean, Jax has more. I don't know. You don't want to typecast him, but he's kind of like a bad boy, bad guy.
Mhm.
I mean,
yeah.
Arthur's supposed to-
the plus I could give it is, well, at least you got the English part right. He is English, so like at least you got that right. But that was about all they got right in it, the fact that, but then of course, isn't any worse than the original King Arthur, where they had Richard Gere playing Sir Lancelot. 'cause,
Yeah, well,
you know,
yeah.
I don't get that either.
we won't go into that, but
No.
this is the Loud List. As always, every Friday we're going to drop one of these episodes. If you want to be a part of this, email will be below. Tell us what list you want to do, or message me and I will send you what I am calling the big ass list of everything. That's got tons of topics and categories. You're free to add your own if you don't like what's on my list. And we would do a top 10 greatest or a top 10 favorite or just a random bullshit list. I don't care. Tell them where they find you guys, where they find you on social media, where they find podcast and any other
Yeah.
ones you guys take part in.
Yeah, thanks, CJ. It's the podcast, and we're the podcast about nothing in particular and everything. You know, we do
Nothing and everything.
basically pop culture. You know, we do a lot of music. Our Aaron's audio edibles are very popular. That's where we break down albums track by track and rank them. We also do rotisserie cinema, where we rewrite the wrongs of the Academy and Academy Award, or, Felix actually awards.
Yeah.
Retrofit those into the culture, and
The movies we actually like.
yeah, we have authors on all that. We have a lot of authors,
Mm-hmm.
and you can find us at pod on most social media platforms at pod.
Mm-hmm.
Beautiful.
And thanks for
as
having
always-
us on.
Yes, as always, you know where you find us. The website is musicgodcjplane.rocks, ROCKS. That's where everything is going to be pointed to. Easy place to find us, or you just type my dumbass name into Google and you'll see this. I don't mean to scare anyone, but as always, we're going to end it the way we always end it. Be well, treat each other with kindness. Remember, no matter what you're going through, music heals.